Okay, boys, what the heck just happened? The NBA draft lottery happened tonight, and first of all, obviously, let's address the elephant in the room. The Dallas Mavericks, the team who just traded away their franchise player in Luka Doncic, are getting the number one pick. They're going to get Cooper Flagg. And my first thought when I was watching this was, I'm glad for the Mavericks fans, even as a Spurs fan. It hurt, obviously, being the last two teams and not getting the first pick, but Mavs fans, they've been through a lot, and to see them get this, I feel happy for them. And so initial reaction to this is like, okay, the Mavericks, assuming they get Cooper Flagg, assuming there's some weird world where Nico trades away the first pick to the Lakers for Austin Reeves, the Mavericks are going to get Cooper Flagg. And what Cooper Flagg brings to the Mavericks now is insane because Nico Harrison said it, he wants defense. They got AD playing the 4. They got Gafford or Lively playing the 5. They're going to have Flagg, I'm assuming, at the 3 then. You have Irving already, even though he'll be out for a lot of the year. That is a scary good team. And I was saying it earlier this year when the Mavericks traded for AD. I like that team a lot. Now, that was without Cooper Flagg. And they're adding Cooper Flagg, and it's going to be an interesting team to watch, the Dallas Mavericks. So congrats to the Mavericks getting Cooper Flagg. And it will be really interesting to see how that team shapes up next year. At number 2, the Spurs move up 6 spots to get the second pick. And I am a Spurs fan. I was really hoping we'd get the number 1 pick. But number 2 is really good because I feel like there was number 1 consensus generational talent, Cooper Flagg. Number 2 was a consensus number 2 who would be and could be in a lot of drafts the number 1 pick in Dylan Harper. And then the rest from like 3 to 8 are like all around the same. Maybe not Ace Bailey, but so the Spurs get 2, move up 6 spots. I really don't know what the Spurs are going to do here because Dylan Harper is the consensus number 2, but they don't need a point guard. We don't need a point guard. We have Stephon Castle, we have De'Aaron Fox. We have guards like Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Malachi Branham. So I don't know what the Spurs are going to do. There's a report earlier that Giannis is willing to be traded. Do the Spurs trade this pick to the Bucks? Do they keep this pick? Do they trade Castle and just draft Dylan Harper? I don't know. But good news for the Spurs fans. We still get the number 2 pick. And do the Spurs, do they even try to trade up to number 1 with the Mavericks? Probably wouldn't work. But, after Nico Harrison made the trade for Anthony Davis, you don't know what he's going to do. At number 3, the 76ers move up 2 spots. So if you're a Sixer fan watching this, it was probably a really roller coastery of emotions because it was first announced that teams were moving down, were moving up, whatever, that your pick was going to convert to the Thunder. And then more teams moved down, and you're like, okay, bang, now the Sixers are in the top 4. It was crazy watching this live. It was like teams were just dropping down. It was the Mavericks moved up, and then teams were dropping down, and that means the Spurs will win and the Sixers will win. 3 of the top 4 teams shouldn't have been the top 4 in the Mavericks, Spurs, and Sixers. And they got the 1, 2, and 3. So for the Sixers, who do you go at number 3 here? Obviously, it'll be interesting. You're not going to get Cooper Flagg. You probably won't get Dylan Harper, whether the Spurs keep that pick or trade it. So you have guys like Ace Bailey. I know they have Kaman Malawach is someone you want to get. But who do the Sixers go with? And does this change the way they go about the whole Joel Embiid thing? Were they planning on trading him? Were they not? That'll be interesting to see. And this is where it gets I call this the heartbreaking teams next. At 4, 5, and 6, you have the Hornets, Jazz, and Wizards. For the Hornets, you were probably feeling really good after seeing the top 4 teams in the draft lottery. And it's like, okay, out of these teams, we have the best chance. But they were number 4. So what do you do if you're the Hornets here? There's still going to be good guys, good prospects here, like VJ Edgecombe possibly, Trey Johnson. Dylan Harper probably wasn't the best fit with LaMelo anyway, for me personally. Maybe Ace Bailey's still there. You can take him. But I'm sure it's heartbreaking for the Hornets, again, after another rough season to not even get a top 3 pick. So that's tough. The Jazz, this is a big one. Well, the next 2 ones are big. The Jazz and the Wizards. Even this next pick, I forgot the Pelicans are picking 7. So the Jazz are picking 5. They moved down 4 spots. They had tied with two other teams, to get the best odds, who had the best odds for Cooper Flagg. And they moved down to number 5. I believe that's the worst pick they could have gotten. And so that is heartbreaking for the Jazz. Another bad season and just another lottery where you don't get the first overall pick. The Wizards, another heartbreak. They had tied with 2 other teams the best odds to win the number 1 pick. They moved down to 6. And then number 7, the Pelicans, they moved down 3 spots. Just really, obviously when you have teams move up, you're going to have this where teams just move down. And so you see it here. At 8, the Brooklyn Nets moved down 2 spots. At 9, you have the Toronto Raptors move down 2 spots. At 10, you have the Rockets, which was the Suns pick, but it's converting to the Rockets. They moved down a spot. Portland moved down a spot at 11. And then 12, 13, and 14 were just what everyone thought it would be, which is Chicago, the Kings pick turning to Atlanta, and then the Atlanta pick turning to the Spurs. So Spurs have the 2 and 14th pick. Mavericks have the number 1 pick. The Sixers have the 3rd pick. It will be really interesting. This was a very interesting draft lottery because all the teams that were like primed to get the number 1 pick, just they were not close. I mean, you look at the 3 teams with the worst record, the Hornets, the Jazz, and the Wizards, all outside the top 3. And then you have got the teams like the Pelicans, who are right there too. They are the 7th pick. I believe that's got to be the worst pick they could have gotten. And then the Brooklyn Nets moved down 2 spots. So yeah, obviously if you're any of the 2 Texas teams in the Mavericks and the Spurs, you are excited, obviously. And then if you're a lot of the very bad teams this past year, like the Jazz, the Wizards, the Hornets, you're just like, again. But I'm hoping that this kind of discourages teams from tanking because at the end of the day, you can lose so many seasons. You can try to get the number 1 pick over and over again, but at the end of the day, stuff like this happens where the Mavericks, who had like a 1% chance of getting the number 1 pick, they're going to get it. Now they're going to get a generational talent in Cooper Flagg. I know a lot of people say he's not generational. I think he's a very, very good prospect. I wouldn't call him generational only because I don't see him ever being a true number 1 on a team, and maybe he proves me wrong. But I think I see him as a really good number 2. Heck, someone in this draft might even surpass him, like a Dylan Harper. But I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on this draft. Let me know who's your favorite team and where they, obviously, how you feel about their placement after the draft lottery. Do the Mavericks screw this up? Does Nico somehow mess this up and not get Cooper Flagg? Probably not, but let me know what you think the Mavericks are going to be like next year. Crazy defense with Cooper Flagg, Davis, and Gafford/Lively. And if you're a Spurs fan, what do the Spurs do from here? Because I'll probably make a video on this because you have the 2 pick, you have Castle, you have Fox, you have Wemby, you have guys like that you can go out and get like Giannis and Durant. You could also just sign people because you have some cap space.